Naive Reynoso there. Right, let's get some reaction to some of the top stories now with Emma James, who's been looking online at what is being said around the world. Good to see you, Emma.
Hi there.
We're going to start with what is still a big story, even though he made the declaration last Wednesday. This is, of course, Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Still a lot of people very unhappy about that.
Well, yes, absolutely. And the focus very much on it because of Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to the EU, the first by a sitting Israeli Prime Minister in 22 years. However, it does seem like European leaders have been rather lining up to rain on his parade, shall we say. Jean-Yves Le Drian, the Foreign Minister of France, said that the EU would not write a blank cheque for an unseen Trump peace plan. So it would appear that Europe not getting on board at all with Trump's desire to recognise Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Interestingly, though, a lot of people are sharing an older article from the summer, back in July. This was written in Haaretz, and it kind of gives you an insight really into how Benjamin Netanyahu views the EU, because these were unguarded remarks meant not for the ears of reporters. It happened accidentally.
The old hot mic.
Absolutely. They still had their headphones in that were giving them direct kind of remarks from Benjamin Netanyahu, in which he said the EU's behaviour towards Israel is crazy. Now, he was talking to Eastern European leaders at the time.
So he said it in English?
Yes, and he was basically berating the EU for letting politics interfere with doing business, as though you can kind of divorce the two in some way. I think Europe has to decide if it wants to live and thrive or if it wants to shrivel and disappear, he said. He also said that the EU is completely reliant on Israel for both security and its future economic prosperity. So those kind of remarks perhaps set the tone a little for today's meeting. But of course, a lot of people still talking about whether or not this is the cataclysmic moment that some feared, because it is a big deal that Donald Trump made this break from protocol, the diplomatic protocol, and Politico certainly believes this was an epic blunder by Donald Trump, saying it's made peace far harder to achieve. Of course, the opposite objective of what Donald Trump says he's hoping to achieve by doing this. Aaron David Miller says Trump's Jerusalem gambit isn't a world ender, it's just ill-timed, ill-conceived, ill-considered and unmoored from any real strategy that would advance US national interests, peace or security. Other than that, it's great, he says. He basically blames all this on domestic politics and presidential ego, whereas the Washington Post has a very, very different take on this altogether, basically saying that contrary to the passionate advocates on both sides of the argument, who either think Donald Trump has pulled off a masterstroke or created a catastrophe, the Washington Post, as we suggest, it is less than meets the eye, and says the White House could have avoided some of the fuss by being more candid about why they've done this, simply stating it was a campaign promise and an irritant to Israel that Trump wanted to remove, period. I think perhaps it's a little naive to think that the fuss could have died down just by them admitting, oh, we were just fulfilling a campaign pledge.
So everything to some people and not much at all to others. All
Indeed.
Right. Let's stay with Donald Trump, because people have been talking about him a lot on TV today, but not because of political reasons.
No, absolutely not. There have been multiple accusations of sexual harassment and sexual assault made against the US President, Donald Trump. It was all done in the run-up, of course, to his presidential election win, and it seemed nothing really could dent his popularity. Now, 3 of those accusers are trying again, in the wake, of course, of Me Too, the campaign that really has brought down so many.
Time cover, of course.
Absolutely.
Silence breakers.
Indeed. And what they're hoping is that if they can see whether or not the world will listen to them this time around. Now, 3 of these women went on Megyn Kelly's show on NBC this morning: Jessica Leeds, Samantha Holvey and Rachel Crooks. Now, the former Miss USA contestant Samantha Holvey recalls Donald Trump treating women like a piece of meat when she was a contestant in that particular competition. And she said, nobody dreams of being ogled when you're a little girl wanting to wear a crown. Take a listen to what she had to say.
I have a new dream now, that this man will be held accountable for his actions and that future generations of women can fulfill their dreams without worry of anyone treating them like they are less than because they're a woman.
So these particular women, the degrees of seriousness do vary quite a lot, from ogling to kissing to even being groped on an aircraft. One of the women saying that Donald Trump actually put his hand up her skirt without saying anything to her on the aircraft. What is interesting to note, though, is that this 16 women have now been brought together by Brave New Films, and they've created a video talking about the claims against Donald Trump, which is on YouTube. However, only 43,000 people have watched this, which really does kind of sit rather awkwardly when you compare it to the Me Too phenomenon. So we'll have to wait and see whether or not people actually listen to the allegations this time around or not.
Emma, thank you very much indeed. Emma James there with MediaWatch. Well,